In the autumn of 1888, the streets of Whitechapel, East London, were filled with fear. A faceless killer stalked the night, targeting women in the most brutal ways imaginable. To this day, his name is still whispered as one of history's darkest mysteries. This is the story of Jack the Ripper.
The voice is even, a bit heavy. Average speed, pauses to create a feeling of suffocation. Whitechapel, in the late 19th century, was a place many Londoners feared to tread. Over 80,000 people crowded into a maze of narrow alleys and decaying buildings. The air was filled with the smell of smoke, alcohol, and human waste. Unemployment was high, and crime was rampant. Pickpockets, thieves, and violent gangs roamed the streets freely. For many women, survival meant walking the streets at night, offering themselves to strangers for just a few pennies. Life was harsh, brutal, and often short. Yet even in such desperate conditions, something darker emerged in 1888. Women began disappearing, their bodies discovered in the early hours of the morning, mutilated in ways too gruesome for the newspapers to fully describe. The press quickly seized on the story, and soon the entire city of London was gripped with fear. Ordinary citizens locked their doors earlier, pubs emptied before midnight, and every shadow was watched with suspicion. Whitechapel was no longer just poor and dangerous, it was cursed.
The terror began on August 31st, 1888. The body of Mary Ann Nichols was found lying on the cobblestones of Bucks Row. Her throat had been cut, and her body left in a state of shocking mutilation. The police at first thought it might be an isolated crime, until it happened again. On September 8th, Annie Chapman was discovered in a backyard on Hanbury Street. Her body bore the marks of incredible precision, as if the killer had medical knowledge. Organs were missing. Londoners began whispering of a butcher or a surgeon. Just weeks later, the night of September 30th became known as the double event. 2 women were killed in a matter of hours, Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes. Stride's body suggested the killer may have been interrupted, but Eddowes, her mutilations were even worse than before. The killer seemed to be escalating, growing bolder with each crime. And then on November 9th came Mary Jane Kelly. Unlike the others, she was murdered inside her own room in Miller's Court. The scene was so horrific that even hardened detectives described it as the most gruesome sight they had ever witnessed. Blood covered the walls, the bed, the floor. The Ripper's reign of terror had reached its peak. And then, silence. After Kelly, there were no more confirmed victims. The killer had vanished into the fog, into history.
With the killings came theories, endless theories. Some believed Jack the Ripper was a surgeon, perhaps even a doctor, given the precision of the cuts and the removal of organs. Others suggested a butcher, someone used to handling knives and blood. Still others looked higher, into London's wealthy elite, speculating that perhaps the killer was a gentleman, protected by privilege and power. The police received hundreds of letters. Some were obvious hoaxes, but others were chilling. One letter, signed simply "From Hell," arrived with half of a human kidney, believed to belong to one of the victims. The handwriting was crude, but the message was clear. The killer was taunting the police. Despite countless suspects and endless speculation,
Scotland Yard failed to identify the Ripper. He slipped through their grasp again and again, vanishing into the night. Over time, Jack the Ripper ceased to be just a man. He became a legend, a monster, a name etched forever into the nightmares of history.
More than 130 years have passed, yet the mystery remains unsolved. Jack the Ripper was never caught. Was he a skilled surgeon, hiding in plain sight? A butcher living among the poor of Whitechapel? A nobleman shielded by his wealth? Or simply a madman consumed by violence? We may never know the truth, but his crimes forever changed the way the world looked at murder, crime investigation, and even the media. Jack the Ripper's reign of terror marked the birth of the modern obsession with true crime. So now we ask you, who do you believe Jack the Ripper really was? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to uncover more unsolved mysteries from around the world, subscribe to the Mystery Detective. Because in the shadows of history, the truth is still waiting to be found. He became a legend, a monster, a name etched forever into the nightmares of history.